If you have said to yourself, I should write that, or if someone has said to you, you should write that, then I'm talking to you because you need to write. And that's why you're tuned in to yWrite. Hi, welcome to yWrite. I'm your host, Angela Grout. Thank you for tuning in to an episode to find out why writers are writing and why you should be writing your story too. Every week, I have different guests on the show that share their writing process to inspire you to not only write your story, but maybe to read theirs. And today, I am going to say that, I'm a writer, so I am going to share some of my writing tips, or actually a little bit of my writing journey. Well, as you can see, the studio is filled with books. I brought in some books today from my own bookshelves, and these are some of the books that sort of influence, why I write and, what I like to read and things like that. So I'm going to go through some of these books today, and we're going to have a fun show. It's going to be something a little bit different, but I can hopefully at the end of the show, you're going to be able to walk away with, something that you understand that can help you. So let's see. I have piles here. So where shall I start? So I'm going to bring you back to maybe when I was in about 4th or 5th grade, and there's this really great author named Judy Blume. And Judy Blume was, I'm going to say, one of my first favorite fictional authors. She wrote some really great stories. Of course, this is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which every, I think, girl in the world just loves this book. And, it's a book that, you read, and as a adolescent, you're learning about the coming of age. And this is like some of the stories that I enjoy reading and writing is just, how you can share with people a journey, how to get through something. Because if you've had an experience and you can share your experience with someone else, hey, why not? So let's see. Before my table falls apart here, I'm going to start like a new pile over here because we're going to have lots of different things. But, very quickly, I'm going to go through right here. One of my favorite books. If you're a business owner, you're going to love this book. This is by Spencer Johnson, Dr. Spencer Johnson. It's called Who Moved My Cheese? This book, and there's another book called The E-Myth. And I didn't bring that book, but The E-Myth and this book are two books that I read over and over again as a business owner, because there are times where you get burnt out and you're just like, why should I go on? And both of these books are very inspiring. And as a writer, it's like, sometimes you're like, okay, where's the end? Where's the end? Who moved the cheese? So, I have to recommend these books here. Now, this one is by Deepak Malhotra, and it's called I Moved Your Cheese. Not quite a follow-up to that, but the fact is, someone wrote Who Moved Your Cheese, and then it inspired them to write I Moved Your Cheese. And this is where I can say, you read a book, and it can inspire you to write a book. And, for me, I'm writing books sometimes, that aren't out there, the answer to this might be in this book. So therefore, if you're reading a book and you don't have the answer, then write it. Now, of course, all authors, all creative people, all people in general, need to find out who their authentic self is. And this book here is by Sarah Braun Breathnach, and it's called Something More. She's got 3 books, and I'm going to share with you. This is very kind of private, but I received this book, I'm going to say back in oh my God, I'm dating myself, huh? I want to say 1997. Let me just look to see what the date is in this book, because maybe it's not that old. Oh, it says 1998. But this is, when I have a book, especially whether it's a self-help book or if it's, any kind of personal nonfiction book, I have a tendency to write in the book. So I end up having an entire conversation with the author, and it helps me to find out, who I am and what resonates with me in the story. So obviously when you're reading a book, you might want to underline things. I mean, that's pretty easy to say, but you write in the margins, you kind of write your own experiences. For instance, this is called The Divine Disconnect, which is about getting us moving again. That's what this chapter is titled. And it says, this is how the spiritual world inevitably gets our attention. And of course, in the brackets here, and I'm randomly opening pages, I've written oh yes, I know this very well. I can't even read this. To grab a pen is like using a pearl. And, I've just kind of like written my random thought on this page because, something about it resonated with me. So, there's self-help books out there, there's stories out there, and this is a story, that you can have a conversation with the author, which also is a conversation with you. Now, I brought up the spirituality quote, which I just randomly opened that page, but now I'm going to bring in a few books that really have inspired me because, I've talked about my spirituality. This is St. Catherine Laboran, and this is St. Maria Faustina. These two books really inspire me because if you have a message inside you to put into the world, or you have an idea or something to put into the world, you read these and you're like, you know what? They followed through with their idea. I talk a lot about when I do writing classes and things about how like the doctor who created the stent for the heart, he literally woke up probably one night at 3 a.m. and said, oh, I wonder if I put like a little staple or a balloon in someone's heart, if it could help them. And, it's a really crazy idea, but he followed through with it. And thank God he did follow through with it. Had he not followed through with it, not a big deal. We wouldn't know. But the fact that he did follow through with it, how many lives have been saved? Now, St. Catherine Laboran, I actually named my daughter after her, her middle name. But she, for people who see a lot of women wear the miraculous medal with Mary on it, she actually had a vision in the middle of the night about this miraculous medal. And what did she do? She drew it out, brought it to someone, and now millions of people are wearing this medal. So it's just a matter of when you get an idea, what do you do with it? Same thing with Sister Maria Faustina. Can't believe in this book there's not a picture of this, but she had a vision of a picture of Jesus, and she brought it to someone, they commissioned it, they drew it up, and now it pretty much sits in, I want to say, almost every Catholic church around. Sister Maria Faustina is very near and dear to me. I can definitely share stories later, and I have shared it on my Facebook page about how she performed some miracles for some friends of mine. So reading her books, this actually is a story of her divine mercy and how she got the picture done and things like that. But she also has published her diaries. And of course, when you're reading someone's diaries, there's nothing more personal than really seeing into their lives. So, between her and Emily Dickinson, and, all these wonderful people who share their journals. It's something that says, you know what, we all can write a journal. We all can write a diary, whether we publish it or not, something completely different. But, you want to write down things in your life that are important that you want to go back to remember. Which now brings me to my favorite book, which isn't on this table, which is The Notebook by Nicholas Sparks. Now, The Notebook by Nicholas Sparks is really kind of like that diary of someone sharing their life so that they can remember it. And, in the story, the husband is reading his wife's diary back to her, and she has dementia. And sometimes she remembers things and sometimes she doesn't. But I think it's very important to journalize. I think it's important to keep a diary because you want to look back on your life. You want to remember these happy, great times that you've had. So what better way to do that than to keep a diary? Oh my gosh. Look at all these books. It's crazy. So, sometimes, books jump off the shelf at you. And I will say, let's see, the following, oh my God, all these books jump off the shelf at me. So, being a mom, when my youngest was born, this book jumped off the shelf. So, of course, I was reading what to expect when you're expecting and, what to expect when the baby's born, things like this. But this is about how to like kind of maneuver through the first year. And again, this was something that, I'm highlighting and I'm writing in this book and making my notes, and my daughter, I think, drew in it too. But I ended up, they had a chapter on like what foods they've eaten and what foods they can eat. And it's so cool because I go back to this book and my daughter Maggie, I would write down the words she would say, like in the order she said them. So it's like, of course she's saying mama, dad. I always say her first word was hi. But she'd said water and duck and binky. And, I'm writing these words down. And, even though it's not in a formal journal, I have a book here that has these things in it. I make a little note like, at 22 months, she can identify all of these words and she can say all of these words. And then she knows all her body parts. So I've written this down. So when I go back and, say one day I want to write my journal, write my memoirs, I can go back and look at these notes, because we all have little scraps of papers with our notes. But, I already know why I have this book and why I'm keeping it. So Another book that jumped off the shelf, which someone had given me as a gift because it jumped off the shelf to them, is Tender Miscarriage, and it's by Paula Sapphire. And if you haven't read this, I want to say I recommend it, but I want to say it's a beautiful story. It was given to me literally the week I had a miscarriage. So, when you're in that very dark time, what are you going to do? And you feel like nobody understands what you're going through. And this book here, A Tender Miscarriage, fell off the shelf to my girlfriend. She gave it to me. And, when you follow your intuition, sometimes you know that you're giving the right gifts. Now, here's one. This is called, by Dr. Claire Weeks, Hope and Help for Your Nerves. Let me tell you, we all have nerves. We all have anxiety. When I found this book, it was at a time where it was after my miscarriage, but it was at a time where I was really contemplating, am I going to publish these books I'm writing? What am I doing with them? The anxiety and just trying to calm down to say, I need to take a breath. I need to find out, am I okay doing this? And, she writes a really great book that just kind of shares different patients' experiences, especially when they're going through sleepless nights and, just thinking, my stomach's in knots. I'm so nervous about doing this. And it really, is a way to break the cycle of fear. So, here I am sharing my books. Let's get to something a little bit more lighter hearted, I guess, which are my love of flowers. So these two books here, which are by two different authors, but they are both floral journeys. Oh my God. These are just the language to my soul. This one is called The Language of Flowers, and this one is Flower Confidentiality. And, sometimes you think you're picking up a light read. Well, for me, I was picking up a soulful read. So, when you can find a book that's written in a hobby that you like or in your field, that, you meet a character that becomes a really good friend, that's what that's about. And they're very colorful too. So, we were going lighthearted. So, all right, let's start with this. I'm going back to religious things for a minute. We got Mother Teresa. This is called Do Something Beautiful for God. It's a book that's not for sale. And that's because they tend to give these out in a lot of communities. And it's a daily meditation read. I mean, look at this. Look at how short that is. Every day you just, I open this up and I will do one quick reading. And, I'll admit I'm a little obsessive with books. So I have 5 books I pick up in the morning to read, but they all have quick readings. So, today here we have, June 4th. There's just a little blurb. And it's something to kind of kickstart your day or end your day with. I'm going to share this one with you because I didn't read it this morning because I was in a hurry packing everything up. This says, Mary allowed God to take possession of her life by her purity, her humility, and her faithful love. She did it so beautifully. Let us seek to grow under the guidance of our Heavenly Mother in these 3 important interior attitudes of the soul that delight the heart of God and enable Him to unite Himself to us. So here, it's talking about purity, humility, and faithful love. And, when you're writing, you have a faithful love on your project for sure. And when you're, writing from your heart and that the story is important, there is a sense of humility there, which also brings out, sometimes a little case of the nerves. These are all great morals, great virtues that, it can just enhance our confidence. I recently was I on a podcast or was it, I don't know. I'm not sure if it was a podcast or if I was a class presentation I did at Western New England University about podcasting. That's what it was. And someone had asked me who my favorite author was. Now, of course, I just told you my favorite book was The Notebook by Nicholas Sparks. And they said, who's your favorite author? If you could sit down with one author and interview them, who would it be? And my answer was, it's going to be a little weird. And I'm going to tell you now, but it would be one of the authors of the Bible. Because, of course, as a child, you learn that God wrote the Bible. But as an adult, you start reading and you're like, oh, the book of Revelations was written by John. I wonder if John, I would sit down and say to John, when you wrote that book, did you realize how powerful and how long lasting that story would be, because anyone who's writing a story, it's long lasting. Like, this is in a binding. It's going to be in here for a very long time. People are going to pick it up because the cover resonates with them, or the story resonates with them, or the message inside resonates with them. So that was my answer, John. Of course, I would also, maybe talk to Jack Canfield with The Law of Attraction. This is another book that, he allows you to do some writing in the book. So, as you're, having the conversation, there's writing assignments in it. So, when you have books like this, don't be afraid to write in them. You own it. You bought it. Write in it. It's your book. These are mine, but, these are your thoughts and ideas. So simple, and I don't know, just kind of straightens out your life on the page. All right, couple more books here. So, of course, every writer is going to say, read Stephen King's On Writing. And I will recommend this book because Stephen King recommended this book to me. And I will share a little story how I sent him an email when I was writing April Rain, because, of course, it's a murder mystery. And I was like, why am I writing a murder mystery? This is weird. Why am I writing what I'm writing? And then I thought, well, there's other writers in the world who write kind of weird stuff. And, Stephen King's writing some pretty crazy, wild stuff out there. So I sent him an email and said, why are you writing what you write? And for you writers out there who do have questions for other authors, don't be afraid to email them. I mean, authors do want to talk. Obviously, someone like Stephen King, James Patterson, some of these very well-known ones, they may not answer you back directly. I did get answered back. However, I'm not a fool to think that it might have been his assistant. But either way, I got an answer. And, I was like, why are you writing what you write? And he wrote back and said, I'm glad you asked that question because that's why I wrote this book. And when I read this book, like, what is that? Oh, like a V8 or Peppermint Patty. What a sensation. He literally shares the story of how he got in a car accident and he was in a coma. And then when he woke up, he asked his wife for a typewriter. And of course, she's like, Stephen, you're in bed, recover. You don't need to be writing anything. And he turned to her and said, you don't understand. God saved me because I have to write a book on writing. So get me my typewriter. And right there tells you why he writes. Because when you have something that's inside you that you have to get out, you have to get it out. So his story on writing really helped me to know that, you got to write. So now talking about writing, there is an author named Julia Cameron. A lot of writers know her because she is the author of The Artist's Way. And she has a book that can help you start morning pages. If you're not doing morning pages, that's when you get up right out of bed and, after you pee, but not after you get your cup of coffee. Sometimes you just sit down and you just write 1 page, 3 page, 1 page is fine. Just get it on the page. Well, she also wrote this book called The Sound of Paper. And I'm pausing to give it silence for a minute because the sound of paper can be so silent, but it can also be loud. And it's not the paper that's loud, it's the words on the page. And, this book, I don't know, it's a beautiful story. It kind of talks about like how to bloom where you're planted and, that, when you work hard to make art, it gives you fuel to continue. So The Sound of Paper is a great book by Julia Cameron. Oh, I got something that fell out. Move that over there. So now we're going to move into a little bit more of like writing things. So these are a couple other books that I've really liked. The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. I first read this. Oh, look at this. I read this the first time. The second time reading this exact one was on January 28th of 2024, because I will sometimes date when I read a book. And I kind of have done some summary in the front of what I read so that I don't have to reread the whole book. I mean, I have highlighted points, so, I can go back and just say, okay, let's, flip through this. What is this? The quality, here I've underlined, the quality of intention on the object of attention orchestrates an infinity of details to bring about the extended outcome. And I know exactly why I wrote that, why I underlined it, because when you have the intention to do something, you have to give it the attention. And when you give it the attention, then you get the intended outcome that you want. So, I remember writing this. So I was like, yeah, this totally resonates with me, because if you put your intention on something, the intention to write that book or that story or start the podcast or do whatever, the intention of it is getting the attention. So you're actually doing it. You're taking the action to do it. And, before you start something, you want to look and see the final result. So, the final result of writing a book, Left to Tell, another amazing story. And the reason why everybody should write, because when you're gone, who's left to tell your story? You got to tell your story. But, I got sidetracked when I picked up this book, because now the book is talking to me. But, when you have the intention to write the book, so, Immaculate, she thought, okay, I'm going to write the book Left to Tell. Does she see the vision of the end? Does she see this cover in her head saying, someday I'm going to publish this book? Some people do. Some people really do. For me, I still see the movie April Rain that needs to come out from my book, April Rain. But of course, if you don't see that cover, don't worry about it. It will come to you. Just write the story. But here, in this story, she obviously, had the intention to tell her story. She gave it attention. And now here the outcome is of this book. And, this is a story about genocide in Rwanda. And it was in 1994, which, it's a true story. It's a very interesting, and I want to say a little bit hard to read memoir, at least for me, because I know exactly where I was at the time where she was in this place. And it was interesting because when you're reading someone's memoir and they have the dates in there, you resonate with their story a little bit more. And, for her, she was going through this, hiding out so that she's not going to be murdered. And that same week, I'm getting married. That's what's going on in the world. All right. The Last Valentine, awesome book. I never realized until I picked it up today or yesterday when I got it out of my bookshelf is, it's about someone getting letters in their mailbox from someone who's passed away. Like the letters got delayed and got to them afterwards. And a lot of my books end with a letter. So I just realized that it really influenced my writing. Of course, if you've heard from anyone from heaven and you've gotten a hello from heaven, good book to read. Help you to understand what's going on with that. So now, here we get into some other ways that writers can use books to write. Outlining your novel. Learning to outline your novel. I've outlined this book to help me outline my novels. My book, Being in My Breast, which I just finished, it's not out just yet, but it will be. So that book, I did outline it. It was an outline from the beginning so that, I wasn't quite a pantser with it. And, learning how to outline was definitely helpful. Joining writing groups online is also helpful because I learn from other writers that way. And I also become a beta reader for some. So Jerry Jenkins, as we know, is a very well-known author. And Jerry Jenkins wrote this book. I became a beta reader for him so that I could give him a review to put out there. And, so he sends me an ARC copy. An ARC copy is an advanced reader copy for people who don't know that. And this book, helped with marketing and promotion. So for his book. And while I'm reading this, it's also, he gives you notes on, how to market and promote books because he's sharing what he's doing. So joining writers groups and things definitely can help you with that. Now, the Screenwriter's Bible, as you can tell, I really like it. I have a lot of pages ticked off. So if you're writing a screenwriter, if you're writing a movie, you need that. But if you're publishing, this book gets published every year. I don't buy it every year. This is the 2015 Writers Market. And it has a list of all of the publishers, all of the literary agents, their addresses, what they're looking for, how to submit to them, when their submissions are open. So I, kind of comb through this and I would highlight and underline or, dog ear a page for, ones that I might think might be interested in something that I'm doing. So like this one here is, let's see. Bethany House Publishers, and I highlighted this, that they consider a one-page query if you send it by fax. And then it tells you that they give you 50% of royalties. And, so it tells you all about these things. So, I highlighted it and said, I'm going to think about them. All right. Are we having fun yet? So, this book here, look at this, says publish this book. Publish this book. I would love to get Stephen Markley on the show, because this book, man, I found it. Let's see, what's the date that I read this? Oh, did I date it? Let's see, 2011. So, of course, I see this and I go, what is this book about? I want to publish a book. This is a hilarious, fun, and educational story about how Steve Markley published this book. It's the journey of publishing this book. He writes the story of publishing this book as he's writing the book. Very, very cool, very clever. And now, of course, we get to some of my journals that I'm going to quickly share. Because, if you're writing, here's some things you might want to do is number your journals. So, like, this is journal number 17. This is 45, 49. Just kind of random, 28. I'm not a huge fan of the spiral bound. I like them because you can, fold them over when you're writing. Everyone's got to find what they like. I got things taped in here. Let's see. This is from 2019. So I will share, one of the important things to do is date your pages. So at the top, I wrote Monday, 9/9/2019. I wrote exactly the location I'm at and the time I'm writing it, because when I'm rereading this, it's going to bring me back to that space so I know what I was doing. This one here is a class from 2017. So, not only have I written what it is, but I also have a little index in here that's telling me what stories are in here. And wow, back then, let's see. This was from November 2027. Oh, wow, this is my Akna story. I'm still working on it. It's almost done. This is called Creating a Bridge. But I wrote typed in here, so I know it's typed in my computer somewhere. And that's the title it's under. So it's very helpful when you have things like that. Now, like I said, the spiral bound are great, but these are my favorite. My favorite. If anyone wants to send me these, oh my God, I would totally take it. They are, they're by, well, let's see. These ones are by True Red. They're hardcover. They open up. They have a little pocket in here. I love this. And, oh, maybe this isn't the exact one. Oh, no. I hope I brought the favorite one. They have an index in the front, which I love. Oh. So you can write your content. So I write the page and what it is. So here I can scan through this, and I've gotten neater over the years. This book is from 2022. So like here on page 10, I have a poem that says, What He Did to Me. What He Did to Me is a poem that's in April Rain. It's also turned into a song that's going to be in a musical that I did. But it's like I can kind of quickly scan through this to find out what's written in them. Again, look at this. It's got a nice little cord here, and so not only do I love these because they have a table of content in the beginning, look at all my pages, what's written on each page, but the pages are numbered. Like, I love that, because here I have to hand number every single page, which isn't a big deal, but when you get it and it's already hand numbered, come on, that's awesome. Then of course, it's got your little tags so you can put it in it. The process that I do when I'm writing is, let's see, so again, I've dated it September 10th, 2011 at 10 a.m. This is where I am. I was taking a Zoom class. I write who's in the Zoom class with me. And then I put a check mark through the pages now. So if it's check marked, I know that I have typed it up, which is very helpful to me. I also, once I type it up, write down how many words are in it. So this one has 1,221 words, has my title. Oh, look, I even wrote when I typed it, which is nice. I don't always do that now. And then when I read it to a reader's group, I'll write when I've read it and the dates. So those are just a little bit of the process of, how I try to keep things organized. I know this looks like a mess on this table, but there's a little bit of organization to it. The last thing I'll share with you is, when you're writing one book and you start writing something and you're like, that doesn't belong in this story, or you just start writing something random that, you didn't plan on writing. they're called story starts. So, here I have WIP, which is work in progress. 411 because it's information. This is my labeling. So this is my writing, so these are all different projects that I've started. So for instance, I have, let's see if the Akna's in here. That would be really great. So here's one that I don't have a title to this, but I've written it, I've typed it up. It's a story start to a story. It's called Beach Days. Yes, that's going to be a good story, I think. Well, it is a good story, but just to be able to kind of put them all in some sort of fashionable order so that, when I am done with the process of one story and I want to move to another, then I can kind of look and say, okay, what one do I want to work on? Let's call it my docket sometimes. That's on my docket to write. So I hope this show has been very educational for you. These are just, maybe not even half of a bookshelf in my house, and I probably have, I don't know, I'm going to say 12 bookshelves in my house. So there's a lot of books that have influenced me. When I buy a book and, I tend to need to keep them, so it's hard to purge them. But if you're interested in finding out any more information about these books or other books that, have influenced me, please send me an email at angelamgrout@gmail.com. And, if you have questions about, how to organize your work or what to do with your story starts, again, drop me an email. I'll be happy to, answer it and try to help you out, because that's what this show is about. Writers helping writers. And I'm a writer. I got a couple books here. My books are available on Amazon and, of course, at my website at angelamgrout.com, or you can go to yWrite.com. And every week, I'm here, and I hope you join me more and more and subscribe to the YouTube channel so that, you can get educated to read books by authors who have taken the time and the intention and given attention to writing the stories, and also to give attention to your own writing. So because today's been a little off the charts, and I usually give a prompt, I'm not going to give you a prompt today. I'm just going to let you digest everything that I've given you. And, maybe I'll just make a little suggestion is, maybe make a list of books that either have influenced you in writing, or books that you think, that are calling you to go read to help you, whether it's to entertain you or educate you. And that's about all I have for today. So thank you for joining me on this episode of yWrite, and I will see you next time. Have a great day. Bye.